Grace is something that God does for us, independent of us. Matter of fact, John chapter 1 says that we beheld His glory, talking about Jesus, full of grace and truth. Jesus is how God brought grace to the human race. We didn't deserve salvation. God didn't look at us and think, I've got to do something to help the world. He could have written us off. He could have done away with us, and it wouldn't have affected who God is. God commended His love to us because He is love, not because we are lovely. So it was absolute grace that caused Jesus to come to this earth, and it was done 2,000 years ago before you and I existed. So it has nothing to do with you. Grace has nothing to do with you. If it did, then it wouldn't be grace. But God's grace doesn't save you by itself. You have to put faith in God's grace. And let me define faith. And this may shock some people because this is not commonly known, but I've got two ways of defining faith. Most people think faith is something you have to do in order to get God to do something. That's the antithesis of faith. That's the exact opposite. Faith is not something you do and then God responds to you. Faith is your positive response to what God has already done by grace. If God by grace hasn't done it, your faith can't make Him do it. Faith, and again, I'm saying things here trying to get my point across. I hope I don't step on Mac's teaching here, but he loves me anyway. And I've said the exact same thing, so it's just a semantic. But faith doesn't move God. God's not the one that's stuck. You don't need to move God. Faith doesn't move God. Boy, this took me 20 years to figure this out. I'm a little slow, but man, it set me free. Faith only appropriates what God has already provided by grace. If God's grace hasn't provided it, your faith isn't going to make Him do it. Faith can't make God do anything. God has anticipated every need that we will ever have, and before you ever had a need, God had created the supply.